the notion of time is so important if you want to get back with your ex. The problem you might see online is a lot of the tips that you will hear and get from other people would be about shortcuts. The problem with that is that it's not going to work getting back with your ex and building something strong, sustainable. My job as a relationship counselor is to get people together in strong and successful relationship. I can get back with your ex easily if I want. You can sort of tweak a little bit the narrative and make your ex want you back easily. But that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is what you can learn from this breakup and how you can build strong relationship with that person and make it work 20, 30, 40 years more. I'll explain everything after the jingle.
igetmyexback.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
So the thing is, not all breakups are equal, obviously. Some are just a bump in the road. And you've probably experienced this in the past when you dated someone, it didn't work, you moved on, dated someone else. The question here, and I guess if you're watching this video, it's because it was not a bump in the road. This event is a life changer. And the question is really about your expectation and really about what you can do, whether you should get back with your ex. I can't answer this question. You have to really reflect on this, and we'll discuss a little bit about how you can do it. And the second question is, can you get back with your ex? For this one, I put together a quiz for you to really narrow down some sort of, so it's a scoring system that will tell you if you have a chance or not getting back with your ex. But at least you'll be, rather than being in the dark, you'll have some clues and some ideas. It gives you a score, and depending on the score, you'll know whether it's likely or not likely to get back with your ex. It's totally free. Have a look in the description. It takes 4 minutes, 3 minutes to complete, and you'll know right away. So, what if this breakup was the best thing that could happen to you? You might not be thinking this way, you might not be feeling this way. Perhaps it's unconsciously sort of a wake-up call, because you took your ex for granted. You were too lazy, you were too stressed by work, with your family, with your parents, whatever. You were too clingy because of this anxious attachment style that you didn't know about when you were together. And this breakup allowed you to learn, allowed you to face some of the things that you didn't want to face. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. A breakup, you can see it in different ways. I think, from my point of view as a therapist, this is the first day of the rest of your life. And it's so exciting. There's so much to build, there's so new things to learn. And by doing that, you maximize the chance of you getting back with your ex. I'll explain a little bit how to do it with a caterpillar. You know where I'm coming from, you know what it's very interesting, fun fact. Caterpillar, before becoming butterflies, they create that cocoon. They eat a lot of food, 100 times their weight, but it's interesting that before becoming a butterfly, they eat themselves. So they literally eat their own body, and only few cells would sort of transform and become a butterfly. And when I heard about that, I thought therapy, the work I do with my clients, is a little bit like this. You need to get rid of some part of yourself that you don't want. You need to digest that dark side or the unaddressed trauma or experiences in your life. You need to eat them, to digest them, if you want to transform. Because what you have to think about after this breakup is not just like shortcuts, as I discussed, like how can I get her to write to me the message and so on and so forth. It's really about transformation. And I think that's why the caterpillar image is very, very important, because it also implies it's a process. It requires a lot of energy. It requires some time. You can't fast track the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's exactly the same with therapy. Of course, there are, hypnotherapy, CBT tend to be very actionable. And so they are considered as fast therapy. And that's what we do, myself and the people who work with my team. But still, you need a bit of time to digest, to really swallow and digest those part of your life. And this is why it's so complicated, is because of the unconscious mind. If you want to learn a bit more about unconscious mind and have a practical way of understanding, you can read the book Think Fast and Slow from Daniel Kahneman. It's basically, he introduced this concept. It's very simple to read. System 1, System 2. System 1 is the unconscious mind. It's very powerful, very fast. System 2 is the analytical brain. And when we make decisions, it's actually System 1 that operates more than System 2. To use System 2, we need to really pay a lot of attention, use a lot of energy. And so his book, Think Fast and Slow, is actually a social economic book, explaining that when consumers tend to make decisions based on irrational thinking, based on unconscious thinking. The problem we all have before starting a therapy is that we have 30, 40, 50 years of programming. The other thing that I didn't say is System 1 is about 90% of our thinking process. 90% of what we think on a daily basis, what our brain activity, is System 1, things that we don't need, that we basically can't control. And the reason is that is because it's way more efficient when you don't have to think about breathing, digesting. Obviously, it makes the process easier. And the problem with unconscious thinking is it's in the background. It's something you can't control. And this is why, similar to a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, it requires it requires time to bring that awareness, those years of programming. Any fear, any anxiety takes that source from something unconscious. So, if you don't know already, it's very famous, Freud's approach to unconscious mind. We have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious. So the thoughts and perception, where we feel like, yeah, of course, I make rational decisions. But if you think about the fight that you have with your ex, if you think about the communication you have with your ex, if you think about the reason why you guys broke up, it's actually down below. Also for them, because we're all the result of unconscious mechanism. So there's memories that store knowledge, would be the subconscious. But then what the work that needs to be done is really about the unconscious. Really, we need to dig deep. It's the only way for you to really address, for you to really transform. Because the problem, as I discussed before, System 1 is, I think it's 100 times more powerful, 1,000 times more powerful than the System 2. And so you will always default to those unconscious mechanisms. Always. It's going to be easier. It's going to feel comfortable. It's going to feel, this clinginess, this anxiety. That will be your default. So the idea is to, how you can bypass this mechanism is to bring that awareness, and I'm going to explain you how to do it, and stop the process. That's why I explain always to my clients, it's like, okay, now that you've understood this, and my cat is just leaving from the cat flap. Now that you understood this, is how you can bring more awareness. Pause the process. If you want to regain control of those fear, of those trauma, and the thing that sort of resurface, what does that mean for you? Okay, and use the System 2, use your conscious mind to challenge those things. Because most of the day, we do things without thinking. So the way you feel right now, if you're anxious, if you're depressed about the breakup, it's, as we say, manifestation of unpacked unconscious mechanism happening below the surface. And why it's below the surface, just to give you an example, the way you feel about the breakup, a lot of people will feel differently. Will have a different experience. They will go through they will date your partner, have the same experiences with your partner, but the way they will feel after the breakup will be very different. And that's why sometimes it's hard to have friends who could support us because they can't relate. because they're going to say, yeah, if I was in his shoes, after 3 months after the breakup, I would be like, okay, come on, move on. That's usually what we hear, what I see, and what I've experienced actually. When you start talking with your friends, they are very supportive up until a point where they're like fed up. It's like, okay, it's been 2 months now, you should move on, or you should start dating someone else. Because they don't have the same experience, they don't have the same attachment models, they haven't had the same trauma or different experiences than you. And so the way you perceive the story, the relationship, the breakup, will generate different feelings, different sensations, different emotions. And so you can only change those emotions, symptoms, if you dig deep. And as a therapist, what we do is we peel the onion. That's my job. And the problem is, most people, everyone actually, resist. It's very hard to sort of be honest, to not only to people, but also to oneself. So my job as a therapist, and our job in my team, is to really peel the onion. Try to remove layer after layer and really understand the root cause. And there's no shortcut. That's the problem. And actually, that's also the fact that it takes time is also something that I think is very exciting and enjoyable for you, because as it's a process of learning, of growing, of growth and sort of empowerment, it's easier, I think, you feel more empowered if it's layer after layer after layer. And every session, my objective as a therapist is every session you will learn something new that you were not aware of. You will regain a little bit of control, a little bit of empowerment, a little bit of knowledge. Not only knowledge, but something actionable. And so the way you would feel, starting with very anxious, very difficult to deal with day to day, for example, by, you peel one layer and you feel like, okay, today is different. And the next week we peel another layer and another layer. And sometimes sessions will peel 5 layers at a time. And every time you learn more. Once you get to that center, to that core, this is when magic happens. This is when you feel, I get it. Now I understand why I react this way. Now I understand why I feel this way. And when this happens, the anxiety is gone. The depression is gone. The security that we all seek, the secure attachment style, now you can live it. Now you can sort of embrace it. That's part of you, because you unpacked all the trauma, all the different difficult experiences on the side. They are here, but you don't have the same sort of relationship with those stories. A few myths about therapy or about your situation. People that sometimes I feel that people have this sort of mindset. If I want to get back with my ex, I just need to show them that I've changed, that I can change. Problem with that is that your ex probably assessed you many times before deciding to break up with you. And so it's not just by showing them after a week or two that, I could do this and that. You've had your chance probably many times before the breakup. It's something else that they are after. I only need to seduce them back. Yes, and I can teach you how to use some sort of, not manipulation, but some sort of script to get people to comply a little bit and so on and so forth. Depending on the dynamic, it could work really well, but then what? You're going to create the same mistakes again and again, and that's not what I want to do. The other sort of myth is like, oh yeah, I need to get back with them right away, because otherwise they'll forget me, they move on, they date someone else. I need to do it right away. So I don't have time for therapy. I don't have time, because if I don't do it now, she's gone. Of course, there's an element of timing in getting back with your ex, but you can start a therapy or working with someone and get back with your ex. No contact is the perfect, I think, framework for you to start really focusing on yourself. I'm not a big fan of 6 months no contact, so I think if you do 1 or 2 months of no contact, you really focus on yourself, that could have amazing results. Depending on the length of the relationship, whether it's 1 or 2 months, we'll have to discuss. And the last one is, I don't need help. I can figure this out myself. I'm watching videos online, so it seems very logical. The iceberg, so I get it. It's like the trauma. So just like I need to figure out, my trauma, and then once I've figured out my trauma, it's going to work, right? It doesn't work like this, unfortunately. The problem is it needs the experience of therapy, the experience of asking those questions with someone who has a neutral perspective on things, who's an expert at asking questions, can really move the dial. Not that it's impossible to do that work on your own, but it's way harder. And the problem is that the probability of you succeeding will be way, way, way less than if you get someone in your team, obviously. So if it matters to you, getting back with your ex, maybe that's, you watch the videos like, maybe that's not what I'm after. But if it matters to you, you have to be realistic. Realistic about what happened. Sometimes people are, blaming themselves, like, yeah, I'm so stupid, I'll never find anyone, she's never gonna take me back. Or overly confident, oh yeah, I've watched 2 videos about attachment style and I'm anxious, so it's just a question of not texting them and that would work. Be really realistic about the situation, about the tools that you have in your toolbox, about the resources that you have, about the plan. It's also about the plan, What needs to happen for you to get back with your ex? Is it clear that you have a plan? Are you sure it's the right plan? Who would be accountable with in terms of actioning this plan? Okay, who would guide you? My method is, it's hard for me to give you like, yeah, the next 30 days you're going to do this and that. The way I work is like, okay, at this point in time, from what you tell me right now, you should do this. Then let's assess in a week, in a few days. That's why a lot of my clients, they switch to WhatsApp very quickly because then we can assess in a timely manner what should be the next course of action. Therapy is different because I guess it requires one-to-one discussion with someone, with the person you work with. Accept to have someone in your team. So it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be someone in my team. It could be your local therapist. It could be a very good friend of yours who has good listening skills. Ideally a therapist, but he or she wouldn't necessarily take you as a client. And imagine yourself in 3 months. 3 months with no anxiety. 3 months where you feel secure. 3 months where you're confident about the fact that you can get back with your ex, about the fact that you can build strong relationship with your partner, that you can make your decision, that you can express your needs. This is what will happen if you are serious about getting back with your ex, if you're serious about working on yourself, this working on yourself bit. I'm going to work on myself. I've been working on myself. People tell me this. I was like, okay, what have you done? Well, I've read some books. Okay, so what are you doing now? I'm like, yeah, struggling to get back with my ex because X, Y, and Z. There's no shortcuts. That's the problem. I wish there could be a shortcut, and I wish there could be a solution where I can give you a guide, a 50 pages book, and you'll get back with your ex easily. The problem is that it's not how it works. That's not how it works. And if people tell you this, they are lying. Okay? If you want to take action, if you want to get in touch with me, someone in my team, really want to use this breakup to, rather than suffering, rather than trying shortcuts, to really transform your life, to change your life for good, give me a call, give a call to someone in my team, and we'll be more than happy to help you succeed. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer.